Welcome to Wellspring on the Air. My name is Mario Diarmas, a therapist, and the host of today's show about parenting in a tech-filled world. Here joining me is Liz Takashel. How are you, Liz?
Great, Mario. Thanks for having me.
It's wonderful to have you. Welcome to the show as we discuss this very important point of conversation, and very much looking forward to hearing what you have to say. Before we get started, if you could just tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, your mission, so that our audience can learn some more.
Sure. So I've been a therapist for over 25 years, and I'm really passionate about working with children, teenagers, and families. I like to do a lot of preventive work. So like to start early on with the kids. I specialize in trauma, depression, kids from divorced families. I do EMDR therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy. So I'm just really excited to be able to offer new and practical tools to parents to help them navigate the new challenges that we're facing, especially in this decade.
Wonderful. And that training, I'm sure, fortifies you for all the potential distractions out there that do compromise mental health, technology being such a prime source of conversation. So, as we venture into this topic, Liz, how do we minimize conflicts over screens and social media with our children and teens?
So, Mario, first we need to have a really strong, secure attachment with our kids. The foundation to a healthy relationship with them is having quality time. And if we're struggling to have a healthy, secure attachment with our kids, we can always reattach to them, right? So this is where I highly recommend therapy for families that are struggling with that. And the average time that parents and children have meaningful conversations a day is unfortunately only 3 to 6 minutes. So that's why
Wow.
quality time is so important. And the average time in front of social media or just media alone is an average of like 8 to 10 hours a day. So
Mm,
when I ask teenagers in my office, what is the number one thing that they would want to have between themselves and their parents? They always say just more one-on-one time. All of them, all my teenagers would say this to me. So we need to talk in order for us to be able to help kids transition into social media. We need to talk to them about very difficult things first, like sexting, cyberbullying, pornography, suicide, body image, and all that, right? But we have to have a really warm, strong attachment to them because then if we do, then it'll be easier for them to talk about these topics that could be pretty awkward.
wow. And
Yeah.
the irony is that we're seeking connection and that clients are saying, especially teenagers, we want more one-on-one time, and yet this discrepancy between 3 to 6 minutes and 8 to 10 hours on the side of social media, and yet it's just enlarging the issue, not reconciling the issue.
Correct. Yes. Yes. And the thing is that we have to be really consistent with our rules at home, and that's very challenging, right? So we need to be consistent because kids will sense our weakness, right? And then they will
Right.
keep asking until we break down. So that's key.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And what is it that causes delay? What are some reasons that parents, you know, actually, what's the motivation to delay rather? Like, why should parents consider delaying social media in the first place?
But the top Silicon Valley executives are saying no to have said no to social media to their kids until age 14. So many of these executives, platforms like YouTube and Netflix, there a lot of their kids are involved in the Waldorf schools, and there's like 1,000 of them worldwide. There's actually 136 schools here in the U.S., and there's actually one in Boca Raton. But unfortunately, schools are really, really expensive. So we have to try to create this environment in our homes and band together as families. So how are we going to do this, right? That's the
Mm,
challenging part. I don't know, Mario, have you heard about waituntil8th.org? Have you heard about this
I
movement?
have not actually.
Okay. So there's more than 50,000 parents that have said yes to this movement, and they've taken a pledge. So I'm really excited about this. It was actually created by mothers who were very concerned about their kids. Then the pledge is completed for children in kindergarten, and the parents have to band with 9 other families. and
Mm.
so that they can make that pledge that they will wait until the kid is 14 to give them social media. And in the meantime, kids can use the watches, the basic phones, where they can call and text, use calculators, calendars, alarms, etc. Yeah. So, and these phones, these basic phones, they don't have social media, they don't have ads, they don't have internet. And there's one that just came out recently that parents are really excited about, which is the Bark phone. And the
Mm.
Bark phone, from a distance, you can actually press a button and you can turn that smartphone into a dumb phone. So this is a game changer for families. I have
Yeah,
parents tell me there's just been they can finally sleep at night, right? Because this phone helps mitigate the bad and embraces the good. And there's other
unbelievable.
phones too that are available. I have every parent that walks into my office talk to me about a different phone, right? One of them is a Gab phone. It's like $90, $20 a month. I had another mom talk to me about Pinwheel phone, which she said it's the prettiest phone for the girls. There's a light phone too. It includes music, the Wise phone, the Trumi phone. And these are phones where kids can kind of graduate seamlessly from one level of responsibility to the next based on their needs and their maturity.
What a brilliant way to use technology for the sake of, you know, easing like students, teenagers into this, because it feels like such a bombardment that this is more of, okay, let's section it off. Let's pace it a little bit. And then you're not inundated anymore. So I love that. And that people are actually using their ingenuity for this purpose.
Yes. Yes, it's finally happening, right? It's finally happening. Yes.
It, it's incredible, Liz. I have been part of these retreats that involve high school students, right? Oftentimes 50 or more students. And it's a 2 night retreat. And the first thing they do is they remove the phones. So
Mm,
there's a whole ceremony where a box is placed in the middle of the main room and all the phones are basically deposited there, and the head leader prays over the phones, and the idea was to disconnect from the phones to connect to the Lord and to each other. And there's so many complaints at the beginning, but subsequently the actual participants are grateful for the time away, and they see the benefits of that separation.
mm.
So
What
it
a great idea, because smartphones interfere with relationships, and I think the best piece of advice that I always tell my parents, I tell them, don't over, basically don't overreact, right? We need to turn our overreaction into interaction. And, so,
100%.
and I tell parents, please don't flip out over video games and Netflix. Some families create a lot of conflict around these two things, but we need to sit down with our children and play video games with them and Netflix with them. Basically, it's important to co-view with our families, with our kids, right? We need to participate in their lives. And a lot of times parents, their instinct is to say, put that stupid thing down, or to kind of roll their eyes, and
Right.
instead of doing that, we should ask our kids, hey, what are you watching? Is it fun? And
Yeah.
this will kind of open up doors for dialogue between our kids.
Which begs the question, Liz, what do we do when we have this persistent teenager begging for a phone? How do we handle that?
Oh, yeah, that's the big one, right? So before I get to that, which I will, okay, I'm going to get to that eventually. All right, definitely. I think I want to touch on this first, because I think it's very important. Because I think one thing that I would like parents to take away from this interview today is the fact that smartphones impair sleep, right?
Mm,
And screens in bedroom equals less sleep, which equals high risk of depression. So I
mm,
really want to spend some time focusing on this, because we need to create some boundaries and hold really firm boundaries at night, so our children can be really alert and have like a better attitude, around the people they love, and kind of protect their mental health too, right? The research is crystal clear. In a study of nearly like 28,000 high school students, scientists found that each hour of lost sleep was associated with a 38% increase in the risk of feeling depressed. And the most current research about screens and sleep states that 79% of teenagers bring their screen into the bedroom each night, and 70% use it within 30 minutes. And Mario, let me tell you, I have had
wow.
kids tell me in my office that they will wake up several times a night to look at their phone. But the most the part that I'm really worried about is I have had kids tell me that they will be on their phone all night, wake up at 6, get dressed for school. They just don't sleep. And so I'll address this with the parents, and they go,
Right.
yeah, I walk into the room 2 or 3 times a night, but they don't realize truly what's going on. So that's the reason why I wanted to really, make sure that parents heard about this. Mhm.
Yeah. No, such an important point to relay because sometimes we see certain attitude shifts or depleted emotion, and we wonder what's at the root of that. And this is a huge contributing factor to it. So, in that sense, kind of as that segues into tips to consider when kids actually ask for a phone, what would be your point of view on that?
So in regards to the tips, the really important thing to do is create a family media plan, right? Have you ever heard of the grayscale, turning your phone into grayscale?
Yes, I have.
Okay, okay. So I definitely recommend for families to do that at least for a week as an experiment to see if they use it less. Um, we can have, please don't have the kids, I tell the parents, don't have your kids use it as an alarm. You can buy an $8 alarm in Amazon or something. Do not leave your phone outside the bedroom. Do not use your phone an hour before going to bed. Set it on do not disturb, so all these are really important things, right? But the thing is that when the parents create a contract, right, this media plan, they get a lot of pushback. Parents, moms, dads get a lot of pushbacks from their own
Mm,
friends, right? So what we need to do, basically tell our own friends, our adult friends, is, you know, that's fine. I understand that that's fine for your son or daughter, but with our kid, we have decided to go in a different direction, right? So
right.
we need to know how to kind of talk to our other friends about our choices. The other thing I like this one. This is a lot of fun. Create tech-free zones. I don't know if you know that Chick-fil-A does that. Are you aware of that, Mario?
I did not. I did not know
No?
that Chick-fil-A
Okay.
actually facilitated that.
Yeah, so what they do is they have like a very small square box called the coop, and they decorate it with wire coop on each, and they put it on each table. And basically, everybody's supposed to put their phone in there. And if nobody takes out their phone during their meal time, then the whole family gets a free ice cream. So can you
Wow.
imagine,
Yep.
adopting this tech-free initiative in all the restaurants? You
That's
know?
brilliant. That's a
Yeah.
brilliant way to approach it.
Which is what you did, what is what you're doing in the retreats.
Exactly.
Yeah. Now we got to
Exactly.
take it outside, in the public areas.
It's
Yeah.
always the stuff that takes more work that really does become more rewarding at the end. It's not the immediate gratification. It's that long-term initiative where yeah, you have to talk to each
Exactly.
other and you don't have your immediate go-to and you're going to see the benefits that emerge.
And
But it
Mario,
takes more
another,
work.
no, no, I agree. I agree. And another one that's really good, and my parents really like this one, is to offer to read books with them about becoming screen wise. And there's two books that I want to recommend today. One of them is Face to Face Connections in a Screen to Screen World, and the
Mm,
Social Media Guide about Wise Posting in an Insecure World. So both of these resources provide discussions questions. So basically, we can tell our kids, listen, I understand that you want social media. I understand that. But why don't we just go ahead and read these books together, right? And after each chapter, we're going to sit down and discuss what we read, right? What we both read together. And then after you finish the book, then yes, I will be ready to give you social media. So parents are really, that's really helping them out with the transition.
yep.
Mhm.
It's very good.
And then the last two things I want to mention on that is using a phrase that might prove helpful. And I really need parents to memorize these phrases because it's always very tricky. How are we supposed to, communicate with our kids about this, right? So whenever our kids ask us, "Hey, mom, I want to download an app, I want to watch a movie, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera," I think the best phrase would be, I don't know, I'm not familiar with this, but let's check it out together, right? That's all we have to say.
Yep.
Let's go ahead and check this out together. And let's not just say no to them. Let's give them a choice.
Yep.
Yeah,
Excellent. And then they do that collaboratively.
exactly. Exactly. And because, that way we give them our attention, right? We don't ignore them. We're not rolling our eyes. We're offering our attention to them. And we're doing two things. We listen
Mhm.
to them and then we're also empathizing with them and their situation. And then even better, we're demonstrating a willingness to compromise a little on their behalf. So hopefully they'll appreciate us for doing this, right? And that's when we give them a choice, right? The choice of learning how to
Exactly.
become screen wise before they get social media, or waiting until they turn 14 as originally planned. Now, sure, they might not like either option, but the first option is better than the second one. So
Yeah,
hopefully they're going to want to learn how to become screen wise, right? Like compare this to learning to drive. I mean, we don't give our kids a car at age 12, right? We give them the keys
exactly.
at 15 and a half. So it's the same thing.
Yeah, it's like how you stated earlier, giving them smartphone alternatives,
Yes,
basically, in
giving
all
them
of this.
alternatives always, especially our teenagers, right? It's all about options and alternatives. Yeah.
Well, this is a fascinating conversation, very instructive and very necessary, especially in these times. And I am eager to continue this, and we will do so when we get back. Thank you, Liz. And we are back with Liz Takashel discussing this very vital topic, parenting in a tech-filled world. And Liz, we've broached so many different areas, and it's been very enriching. So I really appreciate your insight on this topic. Moving forward with that, I was very curious about sort of getting to a point where, as we proceed forward, what can we do in order to build a family that will be more resilient and less vulnerable to the influence of digital technology?
Mm. You know, Mario, I found out an interesting fact lately that the first Friday of March is celebrated as National Unplugging Day. Did you know that?
I had no idea. There's always
Yeah,
something.
there's always something new, right? So every year in the US, they have this day, and now it's turned into a global day of unplugging. So I always tell families, let's create some family challenges to help us unplug, right, as
Mhm,
needed. So the first challenge, which it would be a great experiment. I'm all about experiments, right, with families. I like that. So
mhm,
as an experiment, parents can try no devices at meal times or car rides for 1 week, and let's find out if our quality of conversation has gotten better, right? The second challenge would be to unplug from all devices for 24 hours, but obviously on the weekend so that the parents can participate, right? Participate. So like tech-free Saturday or something, right?
mm,
Um, the third challenge would be maybe making screen time an active time, right? So there's things like Just Dance, Cosmic Kids Yoga, or Go Noodles, where it'll require kids to stand up, right, and move out their arms and legs and everything. And I think another good thing would be like in between, watching movies or media, whatever, they can, the whole family can stand up and do jumping jacks in between and stuff like that to kind of keep it active, right? Now,
yes,
the last two challenges that I came up with are my favorite ones, right? So challenge 4 is hosting a screening at your child's school, at home, or church of that Netflix documentary called The Social Dilemma. Have you heard about it,
I have
Mario?
heard about it.
Yes. So it sheds light on why the technology that connects us also controls us. And I actually was able to get a list of questions that parents can ask after watching this movie. And maybe we can offer that somehow, via email or something to the parents. So
Mhm,
that would be a good thing because, the elephant in the room is that teenagers do not talk about, there's a lot of positives about social media, but they don't talk about the things that are difficult, that are challenging among themselves. Why? Because nobody's talking about it in that age group, right? So by being able to watch this documentary and having the teenagers and preteens having this open space to dialogue about these, I think is very important. And then the fifth challenge is to find out what our teens want us to know about social media. So, one of the things they want us to know is that if they do not respond to a text from a friend, it's considered rude and inconsiderate, right? They need
right.
parents to know that. And the challenge is to teach our teens to communicate and to set healthy boundaries with
Right.
with their friends. They need to tell their friends, listen, there's going to be times I'm not going to be able to respond to you because I'm outdoors or I'm at the gym, etc. So we as parents need to help our teens communicate that to their own friends. They also want us to know that instead of talking to their phone, like taking away their phone constantly, they want their parents to talk openly about building safe habits and to also acknowledge the positives of social media. And then teens want to have an open environment with their parents so they can be honest with them so they don't feel like they have to lie all the time. And then the last thing is we need to ask them open-ended questions. For example, what is your
Mm,
view of TikTok? What's great about having Snapchat? And that can, why is it so tricky, right? How do you decide who to follow on Instagram? Is there anything you would change about Fortnite if you could?
right.
So we want real answers. We have to set a warm, non-judgmental tone from the beginning, right?
Yes.
Hmm.
Yes. It it's not only enlightening, what you're providing is so practical because oftentimes this problem is unearthed and addressed in terms of it's leading to a decline in communication, but you're actually offering constructive points of advice, like prescriptions for this. And I feel like families would benefit a lot from these alternatives that you're proposing.
Mm.
So thank you for this practical advice. It makes such a difference because it gives
Oh.
parents something concrete to actually utilize.
Hmm. And then two things I wanted to add, Mario, to that is that for parents, a lot of times it means making it clear that a conversation isn't going to lead to immediate consequences, right? And then,
Mm,
the last thing I wanted to say is that teens struggle a lot with social comparison. So I want to recommend a book called The Self-Compassion Workbook for Teens, and this is going to help them overcome self-criticism, okay, and to embrace who they are.
that's wonderful. And thank you so much for the resources and the feedback, Liz. And as we draw to a close, incorporating our faith and how we can honor God in this whole process. How would you say we can honor God and create a minimalistic tech home environment?
Mm. So we need to reclaim our children's lives and be their gatekeepers. We can also rewrite and edit, right, our family scripts by asking ourselves if technology contributes to our meaning in our lives, or are there greater things that we can be doing with our lives that God is calling us to? So
Hmm,
in my practice, I have noticed that young people who are addicted to technology are missing meaning and passion in their lives. So who is a person that will increase our meaning and passion? Well, Mario, you and I know that it's going to be God. Ultimately, it's just God, right? So let's think about the fourth beatitude. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be satisfied. And Jesus reminds us that God is the only one who can satisfy our hunger and thirst. Everything else that we long for in this life will ultimately leave us looking for more and wanting the fullness that only God can give us. So even when we know that we should hunger for God, we often fill our lives with other things that we think like will make us happy, right? So for example, our kids, what are our kids hungering for? What are they hunger for? Well, maybe
yep.
they want the newest video game, right? Or the cell phone. Or they might worry about being popular at school or social media, right? And it's not
Mhm.
necessarily wrong to want any of these things. Like who doesn't want to be liked or have new gadgets, right? But we just want to pay extra attention to the things in our lives that might be distracting us from God. So we usually talk about fasting from food, but we can also fast from other things like technology and social media. So let's ask ourselves, what is distracting us and our children from God in this season in our lives? How can we learn and teach our children to hunger more for Him this season? I think one idea, which I've been mentioning, throughout this dialogue, is to limit screen time each day.
Yes, yes. And truly, spiritual writers honed in on this point that there's a God shaped hole in each of us that only the Lord can fulfill.
Yes.
So thank you for those powerful words, so striking and so necessary in our day. And we appreciate you joining us today, Liz. It was a pleasure having you.
Thank you, Mario. Thanks for having me again. Thank you.
And thank you all for joining our show today. Again, if you joined this program midstream, you can find this show and others on podcast at Wellspring on the Air or on our blog on wellspringmiami.org. The title of today's show was Parenting in a Tech-Filled World. And we were joined by Liz Takashel, who was able to really be a provider of such a necessary message. Encourage us and let us know you are listening by sending comments or questions to ontheair@wellspringmiami.org. It's time to wrap up. This is Mario DeArmas with Wellspring on the Air, because hearts and minds matter.